Mr. and Mrs. Ostrich. Originally, ostriches didn't have such long necks and legs, similar to chickens and ducks. How did ostriches become the way they are now? A long time ago, Mr. Ostrich and Mrs. Ostrich were deeply in love, and they were rarely apart. In the mornings, they set out together to exercise, looking for food along the way. At midday, they buried their bodies in the sand, leaving only their eyes exposed for a refreshing nap. In the afternoons, they took hot sand baths to keep clean, and in the evenings, they shared their day's harvest, eating to their heart's content before resting. These days were wonderful, but the food in their vicinity was running out. Every day, they had to venture further than the previous day to find sustenance. Mr. Ostrich decided to go out in search of food, but it meant going a very long way. He didn't want Mrs. Ostrich to endure such hardship. "Stay at home and wait for me. I'll bring back plenty of food, and then we can have ostrich babies," Mr. Ostrich said to Mrs. Ostrich before heading off. Mrs. Ostrich began to live alone. She continued to exercise in the morning and searched for food, though it was harder to find. At midday, she buried herself in the sand as usual, keeping just her eyes above the surface. She watched the horizon closely, just like she had with Mr. Ostrich. She still bathed in the hot sand in the afternoons, though it wasn't as much fun without her partner. At night, she ate some food alone, missing the conversations they used to have about their day. After some time, Mrs. Ostrich stopped exercising, napping, and taking sand baths. Her thoughts were occupied by Mr. Ostrich. From morning till noon, from afternoon till evening, Mrs. Ostrich gazed towards the distant horizon. Day after day, she stretched her neck further and further, hoping to catch sight of Mr. Ostrich returning. Finally, one day, a figure appeared in the distance, approaching with large strides while carrying a massive load of food. As it drew closer, Mrs. Ostrich recognized her beloved Mr. Ostrich. She couldn't believe her eyes. His legs had grown long, very long, and he could cover vast distances with a single step. He had a hump on his back, which was laden with a bag full of food. "Oh, my dear, did your legs grow so long because you traveled such a great distance?" Mrs. Ostrich touched Mr. Ostrich's legs, her eyes filled with emotion. Mr. Ostrich put down his heavy load and smiled. "Is it because you watched the direction I'd return every day that you stretched your neck so gracefully? You look even more beautiful now," he remarked, and both of them shared a hearty laugh. From that day onwards, they resumed their routine. In the mornings, they exercised. At midday, they napped in the sand. In the afternoons, they bathed in the warm sand, and in the evenings, Mrs. Ostrich listened to Mr. Ostrich's stories about his journey. Even though she had heard them countless times, she never tired of them. Eventually, their ostrich babies were born. Can you guess how they looked? They had long necks like their mother, and they inherited their father's long legs and sturdy hump. It was truly amazing. This story teaches us about the bond of love, adaptability, and how the support and care of a loved one can lead to positive changes. Welcome to our YouTube channel. Find more story for kids.